The earthquake that struck Mexico on September 19 left 355 people dead and 250,000 homeless, with many schools, hospitals and businesses also ravaged. Preliminary official estimates put the cost of reconstruction and repair at over $2 billion, and this figure is likely to rise. Official numbers on expected consequences for the overall economy are yet to be released, but the impact is so far expected to be fairly moderate. The political cost, on the other hand, is looking likely to be much higher. The earthquake, which registered a magnitude of 7.1 on the Richter scale, came less than 2 weeks after an 8.1 tremor, the strongest in over a century, which also hit central and southern Mexico. Many buildings that were damaged during the first event collapsed after the second quake, while in many other cases structures were left standing but uninhabitable. Activity at businesses, government offices and both private and public schools was disrupted. The 8 states that were most affected account for 35% of Mexico's GDP, according to data from the National Statistics Agency INEGI. The capital, Mexico City, alone accounts for 17% of total GDP. However, in a survey conducted by INEGI, only 16% of businesses in the capital, or around 329,000, reported serious damage caused by both earthquakes. Most businesses surveyed stopped operations for only one full working day. Economists and banks have been issuing preliminary assessments of the economic consequences and have been slightly reducing their GDP forecasts for this year. The Economist Intelligence Unit is likely to lower its current GDP growth estimate for 2017 slightly, from the current estimate of 2.4%. However, reconstruction activity could help to bolster growth late in 2017 and into 2018, pushing it above our current forecast of 1.9% for next year. Inflation could also rise modestly owing to potential supply problems, but these effects are likely to be only transitory. Financing reconstruction. Mexico made history earlier this year by issuing the largest catastrophe bond in history, which will provide the country with up to $360 million in insurance protection to cover relief and reconstruction operations. The proceeds of the bond are to go to Mexico's Fund for Natural Disasters (FONDEN), created in 1996. The total amount coming in from this type of insurance protection has yet to be confirmed. However, as the bond only offers protection for earthquakes measured at 8 or above on the Richter scale, it will not cover damages caused by the second, more destructive quake. This means that the country's conservative budgets for this year and the next will have to be adjusted. No details on where the adjustments will be made have been announced by the Ministry of Finance, although Ps 6.5 billion, around $367 million, has already been released to be spent on reconstruction. The adjustments are more likely to take the shape of reallocation of spending, rather than a large increase in expenditure, and we therefore do not expect that they will put government's overall fiscal targets at risk. The PR could feel the pain more at risk is the standing of the president, Enrique Peña Nieto of the Partido Revolucionario Institucional (PRI), who has faced some criticism and discontent over his government's handling of the crisis. This includes criticism of a slower official response in areas outside of the capital, and concerns about public sector corruption that allowed the construction of some buildings not in line with strict earthquake-related building codes. The president was booed in his home state of Estado de Mexico when visiting one of the affected areas. He was even asked to pick up a shovel and criticized on social media after the government's official Twitter account asked citizens for donations. Media columnists and opinion leaders have asked the government to step aside and let the citizens lead the reconstruction. In one opinion poll by a major national newspaper, Reforma, the amount of respondents who thought that Mr. Peña Nieto's response to the disaster had been very bad outnumbered those classifying it as good or very good. Mr. Peña Nieto's approval ratings are extremely weak. His administration, which will end on December 1, 2018, has faced corruption and conflict of interest scandals, leading voters to mistrust its use of public funds assigned for reconstruction. One solution the president has announced is to allow the private sector, in the form of a handful of business owners, to manage one of the funds created as part of the country's reconstruction effort. Other funds will still be run by the government. Local governments have also been challenged over their response. In one state, the PRI governor was accused of appropriating aid sent by citizens to use to his political favor. In Mexico City, local elected officials who lead the city's large neighborhoods, most of whom are members of the opposition Partido de la Revolución Democrática, have been criticized for taking too long to answer questions regarding building permits and for not holding construction companies accountable for collapsed buildings, some of which the media claim had having faulty paperwork and did not comply with building codes. As a consequence, citizens have demanded that all political parties, not just the PRI, return a large chunk of the money awarded to them by law for political campaigns to pay for earthquake damages. The biggest parties have complied. Earthquake may influence elections as the 2018 presidential elections slowly come into focus. The public's perception of the PRI, which had already been worsening, may deteriorate further. Time is not on the ruling party's side, as rebuilding will be a long-term process and the current administration will have little opportunity to show any significant progress. This is likely to bite further into the pre-chances ahead of the election. It may also boost the prospects of the current presidential frontrunner, Andrés Manuel López Obrador of the leftist Movimiento Renovación Nacional Morena, who is expected to campaign on a strong anti-corruption platform. Mr. López Obrador, a former mayor of Mexico City, was also the first party leader to propose donating 20% of his party's federal campaign funds to victims of the quake.